Okay, it's 10:30, but David is not back yet, so I'm just going to press on. Share my screen here. Okay, I was looking at this first one. I have a feeling that this is going to be false because only and linear seem like red flags to me. So I'm going to change this one to false. And see what happens. Submit. View score. It is true. I always get this wrong. So I guess linear separable means that you can separate them into two classes. So I was thinking linear, or maybe if you could draw like a parabola between them, then that would be like polynomially separable, but I was wrong. You're back now, Dave? Okay, you're back.
Yep, hello.
So this first one, I changed it, and then I got it wrong. Of course. So linear separable, I guess, means can divide it into two classes. Okay, so usually when I see only, I think of a red flag. That goes to show you. So these are activation functions, right? So we got that one right. Python Keras can run on CPUs and GPUs and support multiple backends. So this is width times height, and the gray is how black these pixel is. This one, so right, there's two hidden layers here. 10 probabilities, and the input is width times height. Okay, so augmentation and can be used to generalize, right? Okay, VGG network is for classification and is trained. Okay, so this is a transfer learning. True. So this one, this is keep the most common words, right? So the bag of words, when you create your vocabulary, you want to only keep the most common words. And the documents are vectors. So the problem with the bag of words method is that you may have 20,000 words in your vocabulary, but if you have a very short document, it's going to be almost all zeros. So it's bag of words is kind of a dumb way to do it. Okay, so right, so with word embedding similar words are near to each other, like king and queen. So this is an LSTM and it's type of RNN. An agent is situated in an environment. The environment has different states. Okay. So you got that one right. I had no idea. Q learning. So alpha indicates how fast the algorithm learns. Right. And the greedy strategy. What do you call this Greek? You know what this is?
Epsilon greedy.
Epsilon greedy. If you have dyslexia, it's like a backwards E.
Yeah.
Dyslexia is kicking in. So the algorithm selects the best possible action was probably. Mhm. Okay, didn't know that. Okay, something wrong with this code. Don't ask me what. Drop out, sequential, compile.
Did they explain why?
No, I don't. They don't have any explanation.
Oh,
It's incorrect. Okay, I'll have to copy paste it. Maybe this one is correct. I would have guessed the other way around. Okay, this is we need to add a dense layer to be. Okay. We didn't do too bad. So I was thinking for this final lecture, unless you have something you want me to talk about, I was going to go back to this Python for machine learning and just kind of review Python. But do you have some topic that you want me? Don't ask me to explain calculus or there's the theory. There's a calculus and there's probability.
I think we can go back to the Python for machine learning. I think that's not bad, and I think for Davidson that's also probably the most interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Good. There was actually a okay, so what happened? Okay. What's that? So Python for machine learning. If you see this NumPy cheat sheet, so if you want to be a real nerd, you'll print this out and paste it on the wall of your dorm room. So they'll definitely keep the girls away from your room. But it's pretty.
I mean, it actually looks useful.
Yeah, I think I actually would print this out and post it to my wall, and I would not be embarrassed. But this book here. Okay, I want to skip down to chapter 2 and start with this example. So if in Spider, you can close everything and go back to the books, 26 books, then Python for machine learning, code, chapter 2, number 3. Okay. So this is actually a cool example because you can input, it uses the VGG 16 like we used before, but you can use VGG 16 just as it is, and it's been trained on 1,000 classes supposedly. So for example, if we okay, all right, so but actually what the purpose of this is to understand the command line. So I think that if we just run this, it'll make an error, I think. First, it has to download the VGG. Okay. So this is cool. That automatically downloads the VGG weights for us. And it doesn't take too long. Okay. But, right, so you get this weird error message. Okay, so I think this error message is because we're trying to use a command line. Okay, so normally if we're running it from a command line, we would come back to Anaconda here and launch command line or some other shell of your choice. And I think I'm on D over here. And then it'll change directory to here. Where are we? Chapter 2. Okay. I want to change directory space. Cool. Let's see. Okay. So normally, if you run from the command line, you type up Python, and then we want to input a dog.jpg, and then enter a number. So the 3 means that we want the top 3 results. Okay, let's see if this works. What happens? Yeah, why did it do that? I had this problem before. Python. Huh. Let me see here. Okay, let's dog. Why didn't that work? Okay, let's go back in a Spider. If we want to use the command line here, we're trying to use the argument vector from the system, import system. So we have to come up here to run and then configure per file. I had to Google this morning. And then if we come down, you see that we cannot enter command line because you have to run custom, and then we can enter the command line options, maybe here. Okay, so here we want dog.jpg and space 3. So let's try this. I'll put a breakpoint here. And then we will debug. Hopefully it will work. Okay. So image path. Now, okay, so that got dog.jpg from the command line. Top guesses is 3, so this worked. Okay. So we resize the image and convert it to an array, and this expand dimensions. So the reason you have to do this, so if you look at image up here, you see it's 224 by 3. Okay, but we have to expand the dimensions by 1 here. We see it makes a 1 here in front. Okay, that's because normally we pass whole arrays of JPEG images to the network. It's much if you're going to if you have 10 or 100 or 1,000, it's much faster to pass a whole array.
So the one is just the amount of images?
Right. The first index here is the number of images. So we have to have a 1 in the first dimension here. Okay, so then we can pre-process images. which is part of the Keras, does something. Then we can predict. Okay, so this calls the VGG on one image there. Then we can output the prediction. Okay, so you remember this dog here. This is our input. And so it guessed a beagle. So pretty amazing. Walk, hound, or English fox. So this morning I tried with Davidson. This photo I took of my dog this morning, copy, and it guessed it wrong. This is supposed to be, did you see that this morning? This is my dog, but the network that we trained, it guessed it was a cat. So I want to try what will happen if I in chapter 2 here, paste. Okay, so now we're going to use the command line again. But where is it? Spider. So you have to come and run, configure per file, and then it's not dog, it's no oops. Okay, Control C. And replace this. Okay, let's see what this does. Let's run this. Thinking. Awfully slow. Chihuahua. Pimco. Siberian Husky. Siberian Husky is close. It's actually called a Shiba Inu, which is a dog that is bred in Japan. They bred these dogs to hunt bears. So these dogs are really tough.
It didn't look that big.
It's not big, but yeah, it's the cool dog because it's like a puppy. He still acts like a puppy. He's more than 2 years old now, but very small. But he loves running up and down the mountains. A good trail dog. So anyway, the point of this exercise was show you how to use the command line arguments. So usually we are lazy and we type the name of the file directly into the code. But if we want to give our code to our fellow researcher, then it makes it difficult for him to use it or her to use it. So better to use a command line. So this is how you use a command line. But I don't understand why didn't this work? You should be able to, oh, I remember. I forgot. Okay, we have to do a Python and then the name of the program. I forgot the name of the program. Okay, then dog, JPEG, and then some number. Okay. So this is how you normally use a command line. Wait. So slow. Very slow. Okay, now it's running. Very slow. Still not finished. Okay, here it goes. A beagle. Okay, good. Okay. Do you have any questions about the sample?
Nope.
Good. Okay, so the next The next sample I wanted to cover Jupiter. So I'll leave it up to you if you want to try to use Jupiter. I know it's popular, but beyond my ability.
Yeah, I haven't really grown warm with it yet. I've seen a lot of people use it, and I know when it's useful, but I'm still not usually using it.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to set a breakpoint and step through in Jupiter. Maybe there's a way to do it, but
I
I'm
think you
used.
kind of do it through those cells, like it just because you can run cell by cell. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
but what if I want? There's no way to set a breakpoint on a line
I, I
that I
I've
can
barely
figure out.
used it, so
Yeah.
I also don't know.
Maybe there's a way to do it. Maybe I need to sit down and read the Jupiter documentation from beginning to end. I'm way too lazy. So use a Python input. I forgot what this is. I want to skip the rest of this chapter. So language features. Okay. That's one thing I can never remember the difference between parentheses and brackets and curly brackets. You know, aren't they pretty much the same thing? But there is a difference. Okay. Built-in data structures. So yeah, this is where you get into tuples, I think. So yeah, I thought we'd Spider go. We're in chapter 3 now. Chapter 3. Look up. Okay, so this curly brackets means you can set a breakpoint here and debug. Okay, so now you see a value is an int here. And if we step over, you can see this value to name is a dictionary, right? So if you use these curly brackets, it's a dictionary. So 0 is a cat, 1 is dog. So if we want to look up the value 0, it would return a cat, right? So this is an easy way to convert our classification using a dictionary, right? Okay, that makes sense. You know, as a cat. The next one is a counter. So stop this. And count number 2 is counter. Right. So let's okay. So our sentence is a string now. And then our counter is a kind of, it's actually a dictionary. Okay, but we're going to, for each word, we're going to counter 0. Oh, it's counting the letters, not the words. Right. Right. So it initializes it to 0 and then it increments to 1.
I think
Right.
it counts unique letters, right?
Letters, yeah, right. I was
Yeah.
thinking unique words, but okay, so we'll last down here. Right. So P, 2 O's, a couple of E's. I saw on Wikipedia, this guy wrote a novel without using the letter E.
That sounds
So
awful.
words like the, you know, He wrote this whole novel. It was so fun. If you look on Wikipedia, you can find it if you're
That's
really
crazy.
bored. Okay. What's next? How about list concatenate? So to list. So now it's not a dictionary, it's a list. A is a list here. Okay. So what's the difference? Okay, so I guess a list can just be anything. If it's curly brackets, then it's a dictionary. So it has a count associated or some number associated with some value. But with square brackets, it's a list. So can be just a list of anything. So in you notice in Python here, we can mix integers and strings. But in C, we can define a list, or we can define an array of integers, or we can define a list of strings. In C, you would do this with pointers. Okay, so you have a void pointer, can point to anything, and then just do it with pointer. But it's kind of a pain in C. But in Python, it's very easy, and we can add lists, which you cannot do in C. You have to make a loop. Okay. Makes kind of sense. How about this one? That was 3, number 4, list operations. Okay. The first A is a list, like before, then we added it. Okay, so this is what they call splitting an array. Or this, right? Uses a colon. Colon means like a range.
Yeah.
A to.
So I think it's just a sec. Okay.
2.1, 2.2. So we got this 2.1, 2.2 in here. And it changed these two values. Fizz2, or it actually inserts it.
Yeah.
Oh, it inserts it. It doesn't overwrite it. I never knew that.
I also don't think I don't think people use that much. I've not seen that syntax much before or ever before.
How about this one? A equals.
So did it delete the first two, or did it? It has deleted the first two. Okay.
It deleted the first two values. Yeah. Okay. So these are kind of little things you would get on a quiz if this were a proper course. So let's see. So I want to stop this first. Stop. And then I want to go to what comes after 4? Number 7, of course. Okay. So now A is an int, B is a string. Okay, so I think it's showing this kind of printf kind of thing. A comma B equals B comma A. Swapped. Okay. Yeah, so Python allows you to do these crazy things. Which if you're a C programmer, you're like, oh my God, you cannot do that. That is sacrilege. Okay, number 8, template. Template. Just do. So template is a string, n is an int. The answer, right? So this is like printf. So what after the percent sign, some number is going to be inserted. But I always thought this is strange. This is kind of joining a string with some list of variables. So for a C programmer, this looks very strange, but it's just like a printf. So if the template has these, so it's kind of using the percent sign several in the 2 different purposes here. So it gets very confusing to me.
Yeah, this one looks weird.
Yeah. So in this case, I forget what they call this. Probably if we read the book, it would say, but basically it joins a template with a list of values. And if there's only one value, you don't need the opening of parentheses. You can just have the value. But if you have more than one, you have to enclose it in a parentheses here, which I found out yesterday. Okay. Let's see, we have here 8, 9. Don't care. Import pandas. And A. Okay, so this is using data frames. Okay. This is now a data frame. It's not an array. Looks like a 2-dimensional array to me, but it's actually a pandas data frame. Okay, so
The data frames are kind of like, I don't know, like a mix between Excel tables or tables and like databases.
okay. Take your word for it.
Yeah, I think rows and lists now have like they have names and keys and I don't know. It just has a lot more functionality, but I still like that's one of the things where I have to look up a cheat sheet every single time I use it because it's
Data frames.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I seen it somewhere, but I forgot.
They are good for like bigger data sets. It's probably better to use them most of the time when you have bigger data, but like I said, I can't really remember it that well, so
Okay.
it's a bit of a pain every time.
Okay. How about zip? I always think of like pkzip for compression, but in a Python, zip is something else. So we have a list, another list, and another list, and we're going to zip them together. Is that right? Zip. Oh, this is in a for loop here. So let's stop this. So zipped together, actually, X. All right. I guess a zip here is a way, maybe it's only used in for loops. Is that right? So it's a way of, we have 3 lists here. And we want, in a for loop, we want to kind of iterate through those 3 lists. So yeah, this really looks strange to me, but I guess a zip is used for combining a list in a for loop. Maybe.
Looks like it. I know that's one thing that I've done, like I've seen in a book before, but I couldn't tell you. I would have to look it up again.
Have you ever programmed in C?
A little bit, mostly in school we used a lot of C++, but it's years ago, so it's like I'm not comfortable. I would have to do a few projects before I would say I could do it again.
What are you most comfortable using?
These days I use Python the most, but like all these are just so niche. It's
Yeah.
like I taught a Python class before, and at my internship I did like a Python workshop, and I have to go through the book every single time because there's so many small things that are like the zips, for example,
Rarely
like
used, yeah.
it's useful, but it comes up so little.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I am. I can never force myself to sit down and read, even like C++, you know, I've never sat down and read a whole C++ book because there's some things that are so rarely used that you know, when I come across something I don't understand, then I'll go and look it up. But
yeah, I'm also not usually very booky, so like I need to have a good, like, for example, when the company pays me to give a workshop, then okay, yeah, sure, I gotta kind of read the book, but otherwise I'm not very good at it.
okay. This one is called transpose. So A is a list. PQR equals zip star A. What the heck? So for a C programmer, this is going to really, because you use star for pointers. So what is zip star A? So basically we broke this, I zip joined them together and then star A broke them apart again. Basically.
I mean, it says transpose, right? So it's probably just gonna turn it by 90 degrees.
Oh, is that what it
No?
did? Let me just run it. It'll make more sense.
Yeah, it made it like if you think of it as a two-dimensional array, then it turned it by 90 degrees. So now the lists aren't then now it's like the first of each becomes one list, and the second of each becomes one list, and the third of each becomes a list.
Okay. So the star here means transpose.
But yeah. I'm only guessing by the output. I don't think I've ever seen
I've
before.
never seen that, yeah. That's kind of scary. Okay. How about enumerate? Run this. Item 0 is quick. Enumerate. All right. So in the for loop, you can enumerate elements of a list, I think. Item enumerate, yeah. Well, that's not too crazy. How about no enumerate? No enumerate. Let's do this the same thing. But now I think the difference here is num. Right, we're using, this is more like a C wave. Num is going to be an integer. I guess it's still, like, I do that right? Yeah. So it's just two ways to do it. I think they're equivalent. Except, all right. Here, with enumerate, we got an item. Okay, which is the first element of this list. But here, num is an index. So to get the first element, we have to use our normal index into an array, or it's actually a list. This is actually a list in Python. Okay. So that's all the samples in this chapter. It probably has some more. Let's go down to chapter 3. Wow, look at all this. Oh my God. Not all are used every day, but some are particularly notable. Zip we saw. It is handy if you want to transpose a list. Yeah, so this is a transpose we saw. Enumerate we saw. In max. Okay. More language features. Okay. So let's do the same way. Let's go into the sample code first. Close all of these guys. And then I will open chapter 7 now. Is that right? No, I'm in the wrong folder now. What chapter are we in? Chapter 4. What's this one? Chapter 4. Okay. For loop. What's this do? Makes a list. So this is a list times 3 list. So this is an empty list. So for I in original list, that should go 4 times 3 list. I times 3, yeah, so that makes sense. Go 4 times. Okay. That's pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, that's probably the most straightforward one so far.
But how about list compare? 4 times 3 times 3, this equals I times 3 for I. Yeah, you can do some really, you can do a lot on one line of code in Python.
Yeah, these list comprehensions, they save a lot of space, but I'm never sure if it's good to use them or not, because it feels like only people that are like pretty experienced in Python are going to get it, and everybody else is just kind of left outdoors, which kind of feels counterproductive at most times.
Exactly. Yet even. I'll just run this one. 2 for get the even ones.
Yeah, now
I for
they
I
put
in
a
original list if, yeah, this same as C is get, this is the same way in C if you wanted to check if it's even. So this is called a modulus. So here's another use of the percent sign.
yeah, that's the one I know. The one we saw before, I still don't get.
Yeah. It joins when you're using it in the when you're using it like a printf, think of it as like a format string and then a list of variables that will go into everywhere you have a percent sign, right? I forgot what they call it though. Okay. So that was get even. How about ternary? Let's just do. Do with if it's even, else 0. Okay, so for it replaced the odd ones with zeros. That's what it's doing. Okay, why you would want to do that? I don't know. How about 5? Nested loop.
I think this is the one that we're more used to.
Yeah,
It's not in one line.
yeah. Okay, so probably the next one will be more Python-y way. 6, lists compare. Yeah, so this is the Python-y way.
Yeah,
Do the same thing.
same thing, but in list comprehension, so everything in one
Mm.
single line.
Um, one thing yeah, I just remembered that for example I forgot how to do it now. I'm not gonna deal it off the top of my head, but yesterday when we were dealing with strings and words, they use as a join. You can have a string. Oh yeah, you use a space string, then dot join. So that will take a list. If you have a list of words and you want to join them all into one long string, you do a double quote space dot join and then the name of the list, which to me seems really strange, but it works. How about 6, 7, dictionary compare. Compute. Right, so this is a dictionary. And the new dictionary equals, oh gosh, 4 key value in original. Oh boy. I'm glad we're not being tested on this because I would definitely fail this one. What the F is this doing?
This is
Dictionary. I have no idea what this is doing.
so the dictionary is also more. It's kind of like a what is it? In C like an enum, enum,
Yeah.
somewhat the same, but also somewhat different. So it's
Mhm.
like it's a list, but it's not. It doesn't have indices. It just has keys. So like the order is irrelevant. So
Mm.
you would, if you want to access the word two, you would search by the key, which is in this case an int with two. So
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
So
Dictionaries.
here,
Dictionaries, yeah.
yeah.
Something like that. Okay, we'll move on. 7, 8 conditions. Conditions. What does this do? Four, 1, 2, 3. Only change values with 2 keys. 2 keys. This is beyond my 2
I think it's
only.
taking, if the key is bigger than two, it's changing the key
Oh,
by
I see.
adding
Key
number.
greater than 2. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it adds the word number to the key value only in that certain case.
I see. Mm. Okay. How about number 9?
But again, I usually feel like nested loops are the better answer.
Yeah. If as long as it doesn't run too slow. Sometimes the loops will run very slow in Python, but sometimes, not always.
I'm actually not very knowledgeable about like writing writing for performance. That's not something I've ever really tried. So I just write code for it to work one way or another.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that really makes a big difference is say you had a 100 cats and dogs that you wanted to what do you call classify, and you could normally you would write a loop for I equals 0 to 100, classify each, but in with Python or in general with the AI, it's if you collect them all into one big array of dogs and then call the classify function once, it makes a big difference. So how about this one? Enumerate. We're going to enumerate this list of strings. Okay.
This is basically just a C loop.
Yeah.
Because in Python, if you don't use the enumerate and you iterate through a list, you're not going to have a counter. You're just going to have the items. So if you do enumerate, the first return is going to be the number and the second is going to be the value of the list. So like this just does the for I equals 0, I smaller, whatever, I plus plus. So like this is the way of getting an actual counter without having to like create a new variable.
Right. And but here n it becomes a string.
Right. If you would just say, because usually you would just say for I in name, but then you would only get the string and no counter. So if you do the enumerate,
you
the
wouldn't
first
have the
return is,
I.
yeah.
I see.
Otherwise you wouldn't have that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Good. Another enumerate. So this is like taking a sub list. Started off on the 6 items.
Yeah.
Enumerate data of 5 from the 5th. 6 of them. I think this is the length. Start off with the 5th one.
The data 5, I get the 6. I would have to look up what the second value passed into enumerate means.
Yeah, because it output more than 6 here. I would have thought that it output 6 of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure about, because there's nothing that says I don't get it. Yeah, the 6 I would have to look up in the documentation.
Okay. Or
what if you take away the 6 and run it? Because it feels like it would wouldn't it do the same?
It gives an error. Maybe
Huh. Oh, because you didn't close the bracket, the yeah.
Okay. What does this do? This is. Let's start off at 0 here.
Huh.
Yeah, I think because you see the 0th element is 2, right? Which is here. So it's really the 6th element.
It probably
Right.
is like the counter
Where
starts somewhere
the
different.
counter starts.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. That's useful to know. Not. Is that right? I put colon. Okay. I was just thinking of it. It's just insert spaces here, which
Mhm.
I thought that Python had to have a tab.
I think it
It can use
accepts.
spaces.
Yeah, I think it's
Before,
not super strict, but I think you just have to be persistent. Like if you use tabs, then it has to be all tabs. If you use spaces, it has to be all spaces. I don't think you can
uh,
interchange them within the same piece of code.
uh, because before I had this nasty problem where I had to go into preferences
Yeah.
and maybe editor source code. I had to change this guy here to use tabs. I think the default is 4 spaces.
I don't remember how I've set it up. I think at some point I started
Hmm.
using that pressing tab equals 4 spaces because at that point, no matter what you do, it's always going to be 4 spaces. But I mean, I think it's just as long as you're persistent within your code, it doesn't matter which way you do it, which in
Yeah.
itself is kind of maybe a problem, but I think that's just how Python does it.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. And then C, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't care how much you indent.
Yeah.
Okay. And zip. Here we go. Zip again. Zip. See what this does. Let's try to step through this one. Maybe it make more sense. The name is a list. Size is another list. Color is another list. So I'm going to zip these 3 lists together. So now shapes. Shapes is a zip object. Can I look at this? So you can't really look at it now easily once it's been zipped up. Okay. So now he's the set. What does set do? Okay. He's converted. I guess but I'd have to look up the set. Probably if we set is probably going to show up all over the place. Set. Yeah, here it is. Set. Set. Set attribute. Maybe set operation. Set is a collection of unique elements you can perform set operations to union intersection terms. Oh my God. Set object. Type. List. Set. A equals set. Print S. Set. Yeah. I'm not understand what this does. Set of shapes. You have any idea what this does?
No, not not by heart. I would also have to Google.
Okay. Circles by not being called unused. It's probably just explaining how to define a function. These two, circle two. Returns areas. Huh. Why does I wonder why it gives us warning.
I think because the function's overloaded, right? Because they're both first called
Um,
circle.
Overloaded functions. So which it only calls the first one? Let's try to step through it. Step into goes to the second one. Redefinition. Okay, so maybe we redefined it here, so it's ignoring the top one, is what this warning message is telling us. That makes sense. If defined area. Area is not defined. Step 2. Area values 12. Oh, I see. Define area. Area. Return area. You define. This is strange. This is. I would I wouldn't define a function right inside of my. I would have done it like this.
Yeah.
But maybe he's just trying to prove a point.
Yeah, I think it's more just showing what's possible as opposed to making things functional.
Anyway, now I really broke it. It doesn't have a return. Anyway, ignore that. Um, 12 decoder. Let's do it. Square decoder. Square it. Oh my god. Yeah, these different kind of questions you'd have in a Python quiz. What does this weird code print out?
Just like in the Keras quiz that we did before. Is this code correct? Yes, no.
Yeah. Is it correct? That's really a mean question. I mean, what do you mean by correct? Is there a compiler bug, you mean?
Or is it logically incorrect?
Runtime bug, or is it just the whole concept? I have no idea what this is supposed to be. Square the decoder. 9.5. This is beyond me.
There's like a function within a function, but I don't think I've seen that before, to be honest.
It's getting too weird. Generator. Oh my god, yield. I've never seen that. Yield. Oh my god. Fibonacci. So that looks right. Next. F Fibonacci. I wonder why you have to specify the 6 twice. Seems like you would only need it one time. But it's just me. So this, I don't know what the yield. I wonder, there's a way to get help. That's not it. You go to hit, it's like Control I or something. Information. How to get help. Help. There's a way in it to get a help here. Control I or Control H. Help.
The
way to get help without having to Google it.
Yeah, this is stuff I've seen before, but it's just I admire people who can just remember all that stuff and just do it up off the top of their head. I don't know how they do it, but it's pretty cool if you can.
Instead of return. When do you use yield instead of return in Python? The yield function. Go away. Go away. The yield function suspends a function execution and sends a value back to the caller, but retains enough state to enable the function to resume where it left off, right? Yeah, I think in C, you could do this with a constant. If you have a local variable and you make it a constant, it'll kind of remain there when you come back the next time. So, but here it continues execution immediately after the last yield run. This allows codes to produce a series of values over time rather than computing them at once. Okay, so this means yield x0. Yeah, I think this is kind of the first time it runs, it will return the 0, the first value, but then the next time it'll keep adding on to. It won't go back and reinitialize 0 and 1.
Yeah, some of these are so specific.
Yeah, Fibonacci. How often do you need Fibonacci numbers in real life?
I think every coding class uses Fibonacci for like one of the first loop exercises. I remember having to do, like when I just started programming, the very first, like maybe second or third homework assignment was Fibonacci numbers. And since then I haven't used it.
Yeah. The first time I really got interested in programming was we had this programmable calculator in our class. And the assignment was to find the first, 100 prime numbers. And you're so used to be a calculator, you input even some complicated function in a calculator and it returns the result immediately, But this was the first time I ever programmed something into a computer that I had to sit there and think, so I thought, oh boy, I'm really smart now. I actually thought of a question so difficult that even the calculator has to think about it. Like I have like, think of a question so difficult even God cannot figure out.
I'll be back in a minute if that's okay.
Okay. So I'll just go on because we're recording here. So 14, 16. My goodness. What does this do? Here's processing image. It's going to train the data set. Show a plot. Okay, show them. Okay, so I loaded the CFAR. Use an image generator, data flow, and it subplots. So this is just plotting the first several images. Yeah. For range for the next function, we'll load 8 images. Iterator next. I wonder why it, oh, here it is, batch size is 8. Okay. Okay, so that's interesting. So this is basically showing you how to use the data iterator. So if we change this to 4, say, oops, not 48, it's 4. Would that still work? Range in 4. It's going to do 4 rows, I think. Now 4 columns, I think. But, oh, okay, so now the problem, it works, but make these empty because, all right, this I've changed this to a 4. Whoops. 4. Oh, the number of rows is 4. Valid syntax. Number rows equals 4. Number of columns. Number of column. I want columns 4. I got it all messed up. See if I can get it back the way it was. I want batch size 8 again. And I want 8 columns. Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. So we have 15 more minutes. Why don't we kind of go down here, see if anything looks interesting. Those zip. Zip allows you to combine multiple lists together. Right. It's handy to transpose a list. So I guess the star asterisk means transpose. Transpose a list of lists. Enumerate is handy to let you number a list items, right? So we can get this num here. It's equivalent to the following if you do not use enumerate. Right. Okay. In Python, compared to other languages, the for loop in Python is to iterate over a predefined range rather than computing the values for each iteration. In other words, there is no direct equivalent to the following C for loop. In Python, we have to use range. Right. Similar, that there are some functions that manipulate a list. Maximum sum reverse sorted. We'll cover more in the next chapter. Further readings. Okay. All right, so list comprehension. List comprehension provides a short, simple syntax to create a new list. Comprehension. Right. I'm just going through the book now. What we
Okay.
we ran the sample code. Now we're going through the explanation. He calls this list comprehension.
List comprehension is like the doing everything within one line.
That what
It's
that
like
means?
the
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So
So here,
in this code, there's no list comprehension.
yeah, he does it with a for loop. But
Yeah, the
the
second
shorter
line is
method
here. The
using
second line
list
is the list
comprehension.
comprehension.
Right.
So in 4.2, the time list equals I times 3, the second line, that's the list comprehension part.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Using ternary operator. Ternary. Do you know what this means?
Um, ternary operator.
Ternary operator.
Just based on the fact that before they didn't use else and for, I'm assuming that's like the else maybe, or the in. No, it's got to be else, right? But I've never seen ternary before, I think.
Operator. What else weird words? List comprehension can also be used to replace nested loops. Nice. All right, so here's a quote plus. So he's going to kind of concatenate with a space. Okay. Dictionary comprehension. It's like list comprehension with dictionaries. Okay. Enumerators with zip. Zip. Okay. Got a zip. Okay. Function context. Python allows nested functions. Yeah, I'll never get used to this nested functions. Okay.
I'm also gonna at some point have to actually look into. I don't think I've seen this before today.
This is too weird. Nested functions. It's possible to do it in C, but I never use them. Just as the scope. If you need a function that's only used within another function, but I never use it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That seems again, that seems very specific to have a function that's only accessible within a function.
Yeah. Like area, print area value. Yeah, this assumes Why don't you just print the area here instead of using this function? That's
Yeah.
just because you can. Decorators in Python. Decorator are a powerful feature of Python. You can use decorators to customize the working of a class of a function. Let's think of them as functions applied to another function with the at symbol. Square. Square. Where? I don't remember seeing this. Plus one. Why does he use the at symbol? Use the function name with the at symbol, but I don't see the at symbol down here.
Maybe that's the example prior to using it. Yeah, here. Now they're using it.
Where?
Just in the 4.13. Now that
Here.
he's using the at.
This, what does this do?
It's apparently a
Square
decorator, but I think that's also something I haven't seen before. Symbol. You can also write your own Christmas. Yeah, I don't know. It's a decorator function.
It's too strange. Where it is. A function. He's calling function, but he passed it as an argument. Like, what?
Probably like a callback function, right? Kind of like
or is it like a what do you call it?
like in
Recursive?
JavaScript?
Is it a recursive function?
I'm not sure. I thought it was maybe like a callback function, like in JavaScript, right? Where you like pass a function as the argument, and then you can. I don't. Yeah.
Too weird.
Yeah.
Too weird. Generators. All right, Fibonacci. We saw that. Generators. Yeah, I think you missed the last. This is actually kind of useful. If you have this CFAR data, and say you just want to plot the first couple images, you can use this data generator. So this is going to flow from train and Y train. So Y is the label. I wonder why you need the Y here. But the batch size means you're going to get one row of 8 of these guys. So this just makes a pie plot with 4 rows and 8 columns. Figure size. So I don't know why he needs why does he need X ticks, Y ticks? I'm not sure what this is doing here. Enumerate. Yeah, I think before yesterday we saw the example, the plot. I think it was much simpler. You don't have to use the generators, but I think it's just that you can.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is really just to show what's possible, as opposed to showing how you like probably more possibilities as opposed to best practice.
Okay, in 5 minutes, what do you want to do?
We could just, I don't know, do like a recap maybe, if that's I'm trying to also think
Oh
what
yeah, I
the
remember. Okay,
others.
that's a good idea. So so one more folder I sent you was this one. Let's see. Class, yeah, this one. I wanted to show you this. So my name is on this paper, but I don't really claim responsibility for this paper. So what they did was they collected patient data. So if you have, say, you have a swollen joints, and you have a high fever, and you have a nausea, then you'd have a lot of red in this image. But if you had no symptoms, it'd be a lot of black and green. Okay, so he trained. He created these images that were maybe about 200 pixels or something wide, and sent this to I think he used VGG16 to classify, does this patient have rheumatoid arthritis or not rheumatoid arthritis? Okay, and it basically works. Basically, if you have a lot of red and orange, it's going to classify it as positive, right? But my point was that later I worked through this diabetes sample. So diabetes, remember the first sample just collected if they have a high body mass weight index and if they eat a lot of sweets, then they have a good chance to develop diabetes. So it's basically doing the same thing, but this is I think, a very inefficient, extremely inefficient way to do it. Okay, you're just converting numbers into colors, and then asking a image classifier to classify.
I think
So
it's like brute for just like using CNNs for the sake of using CNNs,
right,
right?
exactly. So I tried to write a follow-up paper that used like the diabetes sample to feed the input data, but the guy he said all the data was on his laptop that died, and he can't get the original data back, and so blah blah blah. I gave up, but I still maintain that it's it works, but it's very, very inefficient. Okay. So with that, I think if I were going to summarize, I would say you have the books now.
Yeah.
So you have no excuses for not knowing anything.
That is true.
Okay, so it's 12 now. So I'll go ahead and close. So feel free if you have any questions, send me an email.
Thank you.
So we'll be in contact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So thank you for joining. I thought this last lecture I was going to be alone. They say lecturing to the walls, where a professor has no students.
Yeah,
I was really glad you showed up.
yeah, I was my first time teach like when I was this is actually my second master. So my first time I did it in the US and I got a teaching position. And the first time I had to teach like a full on before I was just teaching labs and then I got a full class assigned. And it was during Zoom and none of my students turned on cameras. And it was so weird because I just didn't know if anybody was listening. I didn't know if anybody was
They're sleeping.
but at least there were still people. So like if I didn't show today, there would have not even been the possibility of anybody listening. Because like just
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how did you end up in Korea?
Uh, just kind of a happenstance. I did study abroad for the first time in 2016, and I went to Chicago, and my university just happened to have a lot of Korean students. So without like I never wanted to, but I just made Korean friends. They invited me. I came here, and I
Mm.
really started liking it. And then I just decided if I can get a scholarship and come here for essentially free, I'll do it. So I applied, got it, and now
Oh, great. You have
I'm
so how long do you plan to stay?
my program is going to go on for another 2 years because I just started my master's. I did a year of language classes before as part of the scholarship. So after that, I don't know yet if I'm going to stay.
Yeah,
it's gonna
at
depend
least two
because
years. Yeah.
yeah, if I'm not sure if I want to say it on recording. So if you want to stop that, then I can maybe
Okay.
be a bit more.
Stop. Sure. Okay, so I have to end the meeting to stop
Oh,
the. Maybe I don't. Wait.
I'm not. I
End.
think you can probably just end it.
Right. Stop. Stop.